In this video, I'm going to be discussing some distressing news that Revel Bikes is going to be shutting its stores and ceasing operations as soon as possible. Okay, April 17th, Revel Bikes just sent out an email explaining their situation and that they are shutting their doors. The reason is they have about $8 million in debt, and their creditors, their lifeline, the money has dried up due to their pipeline, due to the bad investment conditions, and they said there's just no way they can proceed with this company. About 30 employees are affected, and it is terrible news for the bike industry. We were expecting which shoe is going to drop next, who is going to be in trouble next, but Revel was never really quite in that list because they are so well respected. They seem to be doing so well. Good brand, good bikes, really loyal customer base, and so everyone is kind of in shock. So in this video, I'm going to discuss what happened, why is this happening, and what's going to happen moving forward, who is harmed the most, and what's going to happen to the other companies in the same situation as Revel Bikes, or maybe not doing as well as them. All right, this was a surprise for sure because they make very good high-end bikes, and I'll discuss more about the company later. But something that was current events is they were just at Sea Otter. So many people visited them, covered their offerings. They had a nice booth. People were smiling and business as usual. And they had 3 new bikes, and most notably, something new for them is one new e-bike called the Rerun. The Rerun had big travel. It had a mid-powered motor and a kind of a light spec, 45 pounds, smaller battery. Interesting concept, and I'll talk about that later. And then they had 2 other bikes that they updated. So they seem to be firing on some cylinders and continuing R&D. So for them, and also 4 months ago, doing my research, it looks like they moved into a bigger facility, and they were covered very optimistically by the local news in Colorado. So Carbondale, Colorado is where they were, and they seem to be doing their best to survive the storm. Really good, I haven't met them personally, but my friends, I talked to a lot of Revel owners today, and they were really impressed by the people behind this brand, the quality and the service they get. So who is Revel? Revel was started about 2019, but the founder is named the wonderkid of bikes, a person named Adam Miller, young guy. He started Borealis, and then he started Y Cycles, Titanium, and then he started Revel at around 2019. And so he knows what he's doing. He's a starter. He's a fire starter. And then he moves on to newer projects. And speaking of newer projects, he left the company in April of 2024, right after Sea Otter. My friends are so excited to meet with him. But he said in this letter that I'm gonna show you guys that it was time for him to move on. He's not very good at running companies, growing them, and it was time to. And there's a lot of money at stake here, and so it was time to sell his share to private equity and then move on, be detached from the company. But with that, it seemed like the company was doing okay. And what made the company special is they had the vision of making high-end carbon fiber bikes with a lot of travel with some really good suspension. And for the suspension, they have something called CBF, Canfield Balanced Formula from the Canfield brothers, where the rider is balanced throughout the travel. So you seem like you had a floating suspension, that was very active, but still was sufficient for climbing, and had a lot of travel. Good quality. My friends can attest to that. The bikes were beautiful, good quality, good service, good support. So good company all around, and they were able to command some pretty good prices, usually between $6,000 to $9,000. So not quite super high-end Yeti or Pivot pricing, but they definitely participated in the high end. Okay, what went wrong? First, they grew fast, so they needed a lot of investment. Up to $8 million of investment is what they took in. And once you have investors, other people will control the company now. The ones who put in the money will have a bigger say in what the company does, and then you have to pay them back, obviously. So high-end carbon mountain bikes are not doing very well right now. Everyone's complaining that bikes are too expensive, and people just don't have a lot of money. They're holding on to their purse strings, as I said in many other videos, and these companies are at risk. They also have high-end titanium frames that are made in China. That was started by Adam Miller, and they merged the two companies together. They sell them both now under the brand, and maybe the titanium was more of a distraction for them. It was kind of disjointed. Two different companies serving two different markets, and first they had two brands, and then they merged them under one brand. But there was another issue, and I actually asked my friends this about 2 years ago as I was starting E-MTB Review. I'm not really close to Revel because they don't have e-bikes, and I said to my friend, how are they in business? How are they thriving without e-bikes? Because that's usually 30% of your business to these days 60% of your business. So definitely, I think they were late to the party. That's the growing segment of the market. I'm sure those guys that work there were not users of e-bikes, but sometimes you really got to see what the market is buying and where they are going. And so they entered the e-bike market today for Sea Otter, but it's really a few years too late. And even the bike that they introduced is a mid-powered bike with a small battery with a lot of travel. And that really is a bike that's 5 years too late. Specialized found out that the Kenevo SL, which is that kind of bike, is very hard to sell. It's a very niche market bike, and you really got to attack the core of the market, which is something like what big travel, big battery, and try to make it look as flexible, has as many options as possible for the user. And so what happened here? Why did it come to a head? I believe, they were doing business as usual, and really trying to. You can't stop working. When you're a funded company, you just gotta chug along and do the R&D, because that's what's going to save the company is the products that you're making today, and that's what's going to get you funded. That's what's going to get you positive and making money. So that's what happened. That's why they were at Sea Otter. That's why they made 3 new products. But then with the prospect, with the pipeline, they got to give some forecasts, right? And the forecasts were not good. They couldn't really lie to their investors. How much money are you going to make this year? How many orders? How many bookings do you have? You're only as good as your forecast, and I'm sure the forecast was not good. The forecast for $7,000, $9,000 bikes is not good these days, and for that e-bike, it's not going to save them. And really, the investor climate, $8 million in the hole. Will they put in another $2 million to get their $8 million? In some days, in some years, that's okay, but right now, it's not. So who does this affect? The most important is the employees. The employees look like really good people. I'm sure they're not very highly paid, and they're not going to have severance. They're out in a small town where there's not a lot of jobs. So about 30 people. Maybe it's whittled down since then. So that's who it affects the most, and it really is bad. The bank owns most of the company, and they're gonna get shorted, and that's they're gonna try to get the most for the money for the equity and the inventory. The creditors, some private investments. The dealers holding the stock will be harmed for sure, because now what they thought was valued 100 grand is now worth 50 grand. And I'll tell you about the sale that they're gonna do, and then the customers who need parts or want to resell their Revel bike so they can upgrade. They're in the hole, unfortunately. So hopefully we're not sure yet if they're gonna be parts for this bike, the line of bikes. Hopefully someone will take them over, and or kind of that inventory and support the parts. And finally, the bike community. The bike community is harmed because Revel, it was a great entity. It kind of was it was kind of rebellious. It's a different mold. It just grew during tough times, and it could be because they innovated. They were the innovators. They had some cool business models, but really cool bikes that worked for a lot of people. So now we won't have that option as consumers, and it won't shake up the industry as much to evolve. They have a letter that says starting Friday, Revel Bikes will be discounted 40 to 50% off retail. Mind you, the website is down right now. Don't worry, it's not down forever. I think it just crashed because there was so much traffic in it. But starting Friday, it'll be 40 to 50% off at retail. And dealers who choose to take on more product can make a 10% margin at the new prices. And there you have it. So bad news. I usually smile, but there's really nothing good about this. Not just because of Revel, but because of what it means to the industry. If a company with such a great brand and reputation as Revel just goes down in flames like this, who's next? We all know this is not over. There's going to be a lot more damage. So, who is safe? Spot Bikes. I know nice people from Colorado. Niner. They've gotten some investment, luckily. But hopefully they'll survive. Rocky Mountain is the one in the ropes. They're going through Chapter 11 right now, owing $48 million or something like that, and it does not look good because it didn't look good before all the tariffs and the stock market crash happened. And how does it look now? And now I don't know how they're going to survive. Transition. There's a Facebook group for Revel owners, about 30,500, and man, they are bumming out there. Yeah, they just love the brand, so it's rough for them. And then the final piece of news I will give is something came out today. Trek tells retailers of immediate price increase, so they're going to increase everything 10%. So that's a big one. That's a big one because people follow their footsteps. Also, Specialized announced that starting on May 1st, I believe, that they are going to have a 10% surcharge as well. So everything's going up. People are having a hard time. Companies are having financial trouble. Tough times, my friends, in this bike industry. And that's all I have to share for you guys. Please leave in the comments what you think of this news, and if you know anything about Revel. I've just done my research. Please add to what I've said in this piece so we can all kind of relate and educate each other. Thanks a ton.